This video is brought to you by Surfshark VPN. Stay tuned to hear more about their amazing service. Are you ready to see songs that ended rappers' careers? Because today, we are looking at the 5 best and worst diss tracks in hip-hop history. Now, when it comes to the diss track, there is no other type of song that is more integral to hip-hop culture than this. From calling out a rapper to assert your dominance over the competition to defending your honor from another MC disrespecting your name, the diss track brings rappers into musical boxing matches in a way that nothing else can. Now, over the years in hip-hop, from some of the most skilled lyricists of all time to some of the most talentless rappers to ever make it big, every type of MC has had their chance to diss their biggest rivals, and while this has resulted in some songs that have ended careers, it has also given us some of the most pathetic attempts at diminishing another rapper's greatness as well. So if you are ready to see diss tracks that have become the textbook gold standard on how to end a rapper's career, and also the ones that have embarrassed MCs in the most competitive moments they will ever be in, let's waste no time and let's get right into it.
It's the biggest piece of dog shit that I have ever heard.
Now, kicking off this list with the worst diss tracks, at number 5, we got FJ Cole by Lil Pump, and when it comes to this song, I don't know if there is a diss track that is more embarrassing than this. Now, with this song, every single thing that you shouldn't do on a diss track, Lil Pump does with his chest sticking out, and the end result is something truly terrible. Now, when you are a rapper known for bars that have the articulation and craftsmanship of a kindergartner, it's already ballsy to make any diss track on anybody, but the fact that Pump did this out of nowhere on none other than J. Cole was setting himself up for a moment that may have brought him some clout in the short term, but ultimately was going to shatter his world if J. Cole decided to even entertain a response. And after the world heard the song, which just featured Lil Pump cursing out J. Cole and saying he's ugly, it was just a matter of time till Cole put this man in his grave. And after J. Cole released his 2018 album KOD, the outro track of the record 1985 threw some subliminals that didn't diss Lil Pump, but called him out for the gimmicky, attention-chasing rapper that he was. And after all of these years, seeing how Lil Pump's career turned out, J. Cole didn't just predict the future, but in a lot of ways, he set the world up into waiting for every word he said about Lil Pump's demise to come true. So for Lil Pump making one of the most embarrassing diss records ever and doing it on a generational talent who ended up scorching him and opening up the public's eyes to the superficial career that was always bound to come collapsing down, FJ Cole is one of the worst diss tracks of all time, and honestly, this song is so embarrassing that the only reason I had the strength to even write about it is because of today's sponsor, Surfshark VPN. Surfshark VPN is a virtual private network that keeps your online identity safe by encrypting all of the information sent between your device and the internet, which keeps your personal data protected from big companies, cyber criminals, or rappers who are trying to write diss tracks about you. Surfshark gives you access to geo-restricted content with its over 3,200 servers in 100 countries, which allows you to access exclusive content from Netflix and other streaming services. Now, in addition to what you can enjoy with Surfshark, it secures your online data and helps protect your personal information when you use such things as free public Wi-Fi, which, if you didn't know, can be a goldmine for hackers or rappers who are trying to dig up dirt on you. Masking your IP address is essential to becoming private online, and a VPN makes sure that your city, country, and download history aren't linked to your identity. Surfshark's Clean Web feature blocks ads, trackers, malware, and phishing attempts, allowing you to surf the web safely. You can also use Surfshark and its Surfshark Alert system to get notified anytime your email or passwords are compromised. Surfshark Alert scans various databases of leaked info and notifies users so they can take action. You can also use Surfshark on as many devices as you want, all at the same time, and no other VPN offers this. So go to surfshark.deals/fantastichh to get up to 6 additional months free. This amazing deal comes with a 30-day money-back guarantee, so there is no risk to try it out. So if you're looking for a great VPN, you gotta give Surfshark a try, and with that out of the way, let's look at the best diss tracks, with number 5 being one of the most vile and damaging tracks to any rapper ever, with Drake's Back to Back. Now, when it comes to Drake, while a lot of times he can seem like the biggest joke in rap music, when Meek Mill called him out for not writing his own lyrics after a cold war of people around them throwing shots and taking sides, the OVO rapper dropped off 2 records within a single week, and while the first track Charged Up was a formidable diss record, it was the second song Back to Back, which dropped just a few days later, that did everything an all-time great diss should do. Drake did not waste a single second of time on this song, clearing up any controversy around his name by defending his own place in hip-hop while simultaneously humiliating Meek Mill in every way possible. From taunting Meek about not making a single peep between the 4 days between this song and its predecessor, to diminishing the Philly rapper's integrity and tough guy status with lines like "trigger fingers turn to Twitter fingers," or by making fun of Meek for piggybacking his way onto the lineup of his girlfriend at the time, Nicki Minaj's world tour. Every possible shot Drake could have taken at Meek Mill's name, he found a way to pull off, and he didn't just point these things out, but attacked Meek in the most humiliating and memorable fashion. Now, while Meek did point out that Drake was using ghostwriters to help write songs, where that put Drake's name and integrity into question by hip-hop culture, what Drake did to Meek made him a joke not just to the rap community, but the entire world as well, and for years, Meek Mill's reputation was tarnished, damaged, and clowned because no matter how hard and tough he presented himself in new releases, he was immortalized as the guy who got bodied by, in Drake's own words, a singer. So for these reasons, Back to Back is immortalized as one of the best diss tracks of all time, but at number 4 for the worst diss tracks, we got another Drake song with two birds, one stone, and where Back to Back is an all-time great diss. This is a terrible diss, but not for the reasons you'd probably expect. Now with this track, this diss is not aimed at just a single MC, but it attacks multiple of Drake's targets at the time, including Meek Mill and more significantly Pusha T and Kid Cudi, which in theory, dissing Push and Cudi over a beat from Kanye West is a cold move to make in a feud against the Kanye protege and signee, but Drake ended up ruining any chance of this moment hitting hard as he did something that no rapper in a beef should ever do. Now the jabs Drake took at Meek were fine, and the subliminals at Pusha, all they really did was taunt and provoke Push, which we will talk about later, but where Drake just failed on this track was with his disses for Kid Cudi, which in many, including my own book, is where the OVO rapper broke some unspoken rules about diss tracks. With a series of straight shots, Drake attacked Cudi here and didn't try to diminish Kid Cudi the rapper, but instead attacked Scott Messicudi the human being, specifically by mocking his battles with mental health, and during a time where Cudi was checked into a rehab center for these very reasons. This is an absolutely pathetic thing to do. Rap beefs are exciting because of the prospect of seeing two rappers go at it in peak form to prove who is truly the better MC, but when you are kicking a man who is already down, this doesn't just make the diss feel like the musical equivalent of a cheap shot, but considering the personal battles Cudi was struggling through, it's completely and utterly pathetic to make fun of a man when they are at their lowest point. I think seeing Drake have a track on the best and worst parts of this list really shows just how frustrating listening to his music can be, because while at one moment you can get an all-time great diss track, just a little over a year later, he can come back and do one of the most distasteful things that's really ever been done in a rap song. So for Drake doing the pathetic thing of kicking a man when they are at their lowest and expecting all of us to just eat it up, Two Birds, One Stone has made it onto this list as one of the worst diss tracks of all time. Now back to the best diss tracks of all time. At number 4, we got Killshot by Eminem, and when it comes to this song, while many people have attempted to diss Eminem over the years and he would nearly always stay silent, this was one of the rare times where we saw Marshall Mathers fire back at somebody with an entire lyrical hit piece. And when it comes to what he did on this track, from the absolute violation of Machine Gun Kelly to the fact that it charted in the top 3 of the Billboard Hot 100, this track was pretty much the musical equivalent of a public execution. Now with Killshot, this is one of the most brutal diss tracks that has ever been released. From the instrumental that conveys this sense of impending doom to Eminem's own demeanor, which gets more aggressive as he goes in on MGK harder and harder, defending his own legend status while also attacking MGK's every weakness. Killshot is a cut that truly set out to end the career and also destroy the reputation of Machine Gun Kelly as a legitimate MC, and when it comes to the result of this, Eminem actually succeeded. While Machine Gun Kelly was never made fun of as much as somebody like Meek Mill, after getting absolutely roasted for having a pathetic rap career even compared to Eminem's very worst moments. In hindsight, we have to remember that this man switched genres because M soiled his reputation in the rap world that bad by just pointing out the brutally honest truth. I will say that again. Machine Gun Kelly had to switch genres because Eminem soiled his reputation in the rap world that bad. When it comes to rap beef, this is something that we really have never seen before to this extent, as Eminem really did end MGK's career in this sense, all the way to the point where he had to put rap aside and chase success within another genre, which is just insane. For this alone, Killshot is one of the best diss tracks of all time because almost no other song has an impact this career-defining to the rapper who was attacked, and beyond this, the track is one of Eminem's most vicious and thrilling lyrical performances to date, which really says a lot. So for Killshot being a song with the rare power to kick somebody out of hip hop as a whole, it's on the Mount Rushmore of diss tracks, and Eminem, thank you so much for making MGK stop rapping. And cracking the top 3 of the worst diss tracks, we got a record aimed at Eminem with the game's Black Slim Shady, and with this record, this song is embarrassing for so many reasons, I don't even know where to start. Now first off, in 2022, the game spent a lot of his press run leading up to his 10th studio album Drillmatic calling out Eminem and saying that he is a better MC than him, but after teasing this diss track a month before the album released, everyone was ready to see what the game was preparing to come at a rapper as feared as Eminem with, and once the song finally came out, the world was just baffled as despite this diss track being over 10 minutes long, the game managed to make one of the most painfully embarrassing diss tracks that has ever existed, as his jabs at M were so bad that he sent the impression that he isn't Eminem's biggest rival, but actually his biggest fan. From the game's writing, which points out the strangest things and spends more time making annoying name drops and references rather than attacking Eminem, to the way he digs up dirt and actually mocks Slim Shady for things and events that happened in his life over 20 years ago. The way the game tried to assert dominance over Eminem and prove that he is the superior MC makes him just look like a spineless artist who is publicly hating on a man that he is really obsessed with, all in order to gain some clout. When you try to make a legendary diss track, one of the things you should never do is focus on such random, insignificant, and minute details or dedicate such a long song to one rapper, because while you may be trying to get an edge up on them, you could end up looking like the biggest stan out there of the person that you are dissing, and the game falls into this trope and really solidifies this as the most pathetic thing a rapper like him has ever been a part of. Eminem never even making a peep about this track really solidified just how bad it was, so while this song will lose relevance in time as Marshall Mathers never made it a full-fledged beef, it will forever be remembered as the diss track so odd and so strange that it ended up being one of the biggest love letters you can find from one rapper to another, and for this reason, it's number 3 on this list. Now back to the best diss tracks cracking the top 3. We got another diss that stopped the entire world with Pusha T's The Story of Adidon, and oh my god. While Drake proved himself in a feud against the likes of somebody like Meek Mill, when he was pitted against a cold-blooded cutthroat MC like Pusha T, he was made an absolute example of, as Push didn't just edge Drake with some damaging shots, but for the first time during his reign on top of the music world, Push made Drake at the height of his popularity look like an absolute fool and damaged his career in ways that Drake never fully came back from. From digging up some very controversial images of Drake to announcing to the world that Drake was hiding a kid, Push's disses caused the internet to explode simply because of everything the Clips MC was able to dig up on the OVO rapper, revealing facets of his personal life and past that nobody would have ever expected from the face he puts up in his music. Now, with most diss tracks, while the losing rapper's reputation will always end up getting damaged to some degree, the story of Adidon affected Drake in ways more pivotal than most ever have. While even if Push released the most damaging track of all time, there is no such thing as ending somebody as big as Drake's career, but what you could do to somebody on this level of stardom is drag their reputation through the mud and have the public's opinion forever be altered about him, and while Push did this, by exposing Drake's personal business, what he also did was lose Drake out on presumably hundreds of millions of dollars, as he broke the news that Drake was going to use the birth of his son Adonis for an Adidas press campaign. But after this track, Drake joining Adidas and the whole campaign fell through, so just from the fact that Push was able to do irreversible damage to Drake's pockets pretty bad through rap beef, it just shows the type of tactician that Pusha T is, as he damaged Drake in a way that nobody would have ever predicted. So for the story of Adidon being the coldest diss track ever released, damaging a rapper who has held such a clean and perfect image to the public in irreversible fashion, and ultimately losing him millions of dollars, you can't deny this track's place amongst the best diss tracks of all time. Now back to the worst diss tracks, coming in at number 2. We got a song that everybody should absolutely despise with Badass by Troy Ave, and released in 2016. This diss was aimed at Joey Badass all because he claimed that he was one of the biggest independent artists on his track Ready, and name-dropped Troy Ave when talking about how successful him and his pro-era crew were, and Troy got mad at this and responded, which is expected, but what he actually did on this diss would ruin his reputation in hip-hop forever. Now for most of the song, what Troy Ave would do is just come at Joey Badass with some standard disses, but where things go off the rails is when Troy attacks Joey's close friend and fellow Pro Era member Capital Steez, who took his own life in 2012, where he made fun of him for this. Now the lyrics are on screen, and as you can see, this is the worst thing you can ever do in a track. While I talked about earlier how pathetic it was for Drake to kick a man when he was down, spitting on the deceased is immoral to the point of no return, and while some of these diss tracks are here because they are laughably bad or weird, this one is a pure disgrace to the competitive spirit and nature of hip-hop that is supposed to make these battles the centerpiece of the culture for better. So for Troy Ave being an absolute horrible human attacking people who don't even have the ability to defend themselves, this is not just one of the worst diss tracks of all time, but it's really one of the most disrespectful songs that's ever been recorded. Now moving past that terrible track, back to the best songs. At number 2, we got the quintessential diss track with Ice Cube's No Vaseline. Now before we can talk about this legendary track, let's set the stage. In 1991, Ice Cube recently left NWA because he was being severely underpaid and mistreated for his contributions to the group, and after making it big as a solo artist, NWA decided to diss him and call him a traitor and a fraud. Now dissing somebody who was once considered your brother, on top of the fact of him being considered arguably the hardest rapper in the game at the time, Ice Cube had all of the passion and determination to put this rage and frustration he's felt with Eazy-E, Dr. Dre, and the rest of the group since he left all into one track, and through this over 5-minute cut, Cube just destroys NWA 1v4. From talking about how the group is when soft, is controlled by their manager, and how Eazy-E has become a sellout. Cube's cutthroat demeanor and aggressive yet poignant jabs didn't just make for a diss that would humiliate a group who prided themselves on their toughness, but it made for a record that's just as catchy as it is hard-hitting. From creating memorable bridges by calling out Eazy for having dinner with the president, to the handful of quotables dissing MC Ren and Dr. Dre for putting up with their manager who was mistreating and abusing the entire group, Jerry Heller, Ice Cube set the standard for just how brutal and impactful a diss track can be. In hindsight, seeing how Dr. Dre also left NWA and had a falling out with Eazy-E and Jerry Heller really shows how Cube set the bar rolling for the demise of the entire group. So overall, for going against an entire collective who had it out to get you after betting on yourself over them and putting all of them in their rightful place, No Vaseline is the second best diss track of all time. And now we are finally here for the worst diss track of all time. We actually got a 3-way tie with what I consider to be the unholy trinity of diss tracks, all geared towards one individual from one of the least talented men to ever grace a mic. Now, if you haven't figured it out, I am talking about Nick Cannon's diss tracks on Eminem, I'm a Slick Rick, The Invitation, and Pray For Him, which are about as cringe as it gets, and oh my God, these songs are terrible. Now, when it comes to these tracks, this feud started all the way back in 2009 when Eminem released his track Bagpipes from Baghdad, where he threw in a couple of lines talking about his relationship with Mariah Carey, where he ended up taking some playful jabs at Nick Cannon, saying that he's gonna steal Mariah back from him, and with these throwaway lines, along with all the rumors swirling around the brief but controversial relationship between Em and Mariah, from this point on, Nick Cannon pretty much went insane trying to go after Eminem time and time again, and the result of this is like the equivalent of the worst player in the NBA trying to 1v1 LeBron James. It's just pathetic. Nick Cannon just has no place even trying to compete with Eminem on the mic, yet through all of these songs that he has released, no matter what weird gimmicks he's relying on or who else he brings along to help him, he has completely and utterly failed to make just one song that discredits Eminem, defends Mariah Carey's honor, or is just a decent hip-hop record. Now, the first record Nick Cannon released towards Eminem was I'm a Slick Rick, which featured him rapping over the Teach Me How to Dougie beat, all while he does a Slick Rick impression with some of the weakest and most baseless disses that have ever gone M's way, and all this track ended up being is another attempt from somebody trying to discredit Eminem's manlyhood with some whack insults, and as a result, Nick Cannon just made himself look absolutely pathetic, and while this diss would have been bad on its own, he would come back almost a decade later with even more disses that somehow got even worse. Now when it comes to this part of Nick Cannon's beef with Eminem, it was all stirred up when Cannon called out M on T.I.'s podcast in 2019, where he claimed that he was verbally harassing Mariah about a decade back, and after these claims, Eminem actually clapped back at Nick on Fat Joe's 2019 track Lord Above, saying that Cannon has neutered himself for a girl he's not even with anymore, and that he tried to warn Cannon that Mariah was crazy after all. And once Eminem said his piece about all of the taunting and all of the flack coming his way since I'm a Slick Rick and from Nick Cannon over the years, Cannon just went off the walls, dropping back-to-back diss tracks with the songs Pray For Him and The Invitation, which featured Suge Knight and MCs from the Black Squad Collective. And between Cannon allowing these even more forgettable MCs to attack Eminem, Suge Knight taunting M from a collect call, and of course Cannon's own disses, which tried to attack Marshall Mathers by saying any random thing that has no evidence or truth behind it whatsoever. Nick Cannon just ended up being the ultimate loser of this situation, as while Eminem continued to clown his name and choices with small but effective disses, Cannon's all-out attacks with other MCs, music videos, and multiple diss tracks releasing at once made him look absolutely pathetic and insecure, and with bars like this being the best he had to go against somebody who is proven to have the ability to destroy careers, Nick Cannon shouldn't even be allowed to release any sort of songs anymore. So overall, for Nick Cannon releasing beyond laughable diss tracks that fail on all fronts and make him look not just like an absolute fool, but also arguably the least talented person to ever try and seriously rap, he has not one, but two, but the three worst diss tracks of all time. And coming in at number 1, for the greatest diss track of all time, we have Ether by Nas, and when it comes to this song, what do I really have to talk about that hasn't been said already? After the passing of the legendary Notorious B.I.G., Nas and Jay-Z fought for the crown of New York hip-hop, and after years of subliminals, their Cold War turned into an all-out feud when Jay-Z dissed Nas for the diminishing quality of his new records on the Blueprint song Take Over, and from here, the balls were in Nas's court to clap back, and in a time where Nas was going against arguably the biggest rapper in the world at the height of his power. This feud was going to be no easy task to win, and with the public opinion around Nas definitely not being as strong as it once was due to his more recent releases at the time being lackluster, if Jay-Z was able to edge out Nas, it could potentially damage Nas's reputation to the point where he was truly remembered as the one-album wonder Jay tried to portray him as, but as we all know, this did not happen as Nas released the perfect diss track in this absolute clash of titans. Released on Jay-Z's birthday of December 4th, 2001. Nas released this lyrical bomb at the best time possible, and while if this track would have blown up in Nas's face, it would have ruined his reputation. All the track did was explode the rest of the hip-hop world as Nas picked apart Jay-Z to the point where to this day, people use the phrase ether to describe when a rapper gets a near-fatal diss to them. The pulsing instrumental sets the precedent that Nas is not here to play games on this song, and through the 3 verses that clear the dirt around his reputation while also picking apart Jay-Z for biting off Biggie amongst a long list of other insecurities and weaknesses that nobody ever seemed to harp on. The way Nas keeps going in at Jay bar after bar makes this track feel like the equivalent of watching somebody getting KO'd and then just continuing to get attacked while they're on the ground. Nas really goes in that hard. So in retrospect, all these years later, what Nas did on Ether really only comes off as an even more impressive feat. Throughout the rest of this list and through most rap beefs, the matchup is never really even, and the story usually ends with one rapper who is way more skilled than the other giving them a harsh reality check, but with Ether, this is not the case at all. Jay-Z was the biggest rapper in the world at the moment, releasing his biggest and most acclaimed album yet, and in this moment of power where no other rapper has ever been checked on this level. Nas defended his honor, bringing Jay-Z to the ground and setting himself as the rightful heir to Biggie's throne after this in the eyes of the people. Between this and the fact that Nas proved here that despite some of his more recent releases at the time being inferior to his first 2 albums, he is still just as good of an MC as ever, and this diss set the floodgates for Nas to go on an amazing run for the rest of the 2000s. So overall, for Ether winning Nas the most important battle in hip-hop during the 21st century, it is the greatest diss track of all time. So there you have it. There is my list of the best and worst diss tracks to ever release, and let me know, do you agree with my list? Be sure to leave a comment. I can't wait to see what you have to say, and if you enjoyed this video, be sure to stick around and subscribe because it helps me out a ton and it is free to do. Once again, hit the link in the description to visit surfshark.deal/fantastichh and enter the promo code FANTASTICHH. Thank you for watching, your support means everything. Mr. Ref, Fantastic Hip Hop, signing out, catch you in the next video.